Just Shapes and Beats. This is probably my third favorite video game name ever, behind only Extreme Sports with the Berenstain Bears and Touch Dick. I feel like I don't need to explain myself here. The reason I love this name is because it's so simple and straightforward, and it's what the game is. Just shapes and beats, that's all it is. Why am I talking about Just Shapes and Beats when it's been out for 3 years? Well, you see, I've been eyeing this game since its release, and for whatever ungodly reason, I just never pulled the trigger on it, and then eventually my brother bought it. And now that I've played it, I feel like my purpose in life is to try and convince even one person to not be like me and pick this up immediately, because if you don't, just like me, you will be undeniably and unequivocally a humongous dumbass, so that's why I'm here. If I had to think of one game genre that's maybe the most uninviting to new players, I'd probably have to go with either 90-hour 2D turn-based JRPGs or bullet hell games. The former because it's such a massive time sink with, in a lot of people's eyes, very outdated gameplay models, and the latter because you look at something like this and go, yeah, I really don't know if I want to do that, man. If this is a genre that you've been avoiding because it looks too intense or chaotic or difficult, Just Shapes and Beats is probably the single best introduction that you could hope for. I am not good at bullet hells. I haven't played a lot of them, but for those that I have played, I'm okay at best, but I've been just fine with Just Shapes and Beats. There's never been a point where I even come close to saying, this level is wiping the floor with me, I'm not having a good time. But on the flip side, if you're experienced with these types of games, it's important to note that not only is the game constantly engaging, there are plenty of levels where you have to be pretty active, especially if you dive into hardcore mode, but there are also so many other enjoyable aspects of this game that even if you don't wind up feeling challenged, you'd be hard-pressed to find anyone who doesn't find a reason to love this title. And we'll get right into why after the little monster man does the introduction. Fluidity and simplicity. These are like my turn-ons. If you go through my videos, you'll definitely run into a few where I talk about simplicity specifically and how when it's well done, I can't get enough of it. You know how every English teacher has that buzzword or concept that you can play to get an easy A? Mr. Holland, that was my 12th grade English teacher, he loved the word juxtaposition. My 9th grade journalism teacher, I gave my younger sister the tip of bringing up feminism somehow in every piece she handed in, and she got 100 on every assignment from that point on. If I was an English teacher, 100% my buzz concept would be simplicity in media. Fluidity is where half of my love for Spider-Man comes from. I'll never get tired of web swinging, I will never get sick of the unfairly satisfying animation from Spider-Verse. When everything is just moving in unorthodox ways, but it's so well connected and seamless and smooth, oh my god, dude, that shit is my kryptonite. Just Shapes and Beats is built around these two properties, and it's topped off by some killer music that really ties everything together, so I guess it's no surprise that I am absolutely in love with this game. If we're talking about what you're actually seeing in the game, the purely visual side of things, the title says it all. Just Shapes. Dude, it's just shapes. Just simple shapes, mind you. Squares, triangles, rectangles, circles. The most complicated it gets is a hexagon. These clouds are just a bunch of individual gray circles overlapping one another. This enemy design, he's got spiky arms and headphones. There's no way he's just shapes, right? Wrong, idiot. He is just shapes. Circle, circle, triangle, rectangle, rectangle, semicircle, circle inside a circle with triangles on it and circles for fingers. This one's kind of cheating because it's a quarter oval or something, but it still counts. Every moment I was playing the game, I was continually impressed with the designs they came up with that incorporated this constraint. And even better was the way they animated everything, specifically the bosses. It's a perfect balance of swelling or shrinking these shapes to certain sizes or controlling the space between them to mimic complex emotions through outwardly simple but clearly some pretty difficult methods. Everything moves so perfectly in this game, and knowing in the back of your mind what the rules are and that the game is strictly adhering to them makes everything even cooler. Even being in the overworld and simple things like realizing halfway through that these tree branches are actually just a couple rectangles slapped on the sides of another rectangle, it made the world feel cohesive and impressive and made me want to keep an eye out for every structure or character that came after to find other clever ways they discovered to represent stuff you usually wouldn't give a second glance to. Speaking of the overworld, I have to give this game a lot of credit for the creative inter-level designs and concepts. The majority of the meat of this game happens here, with you as a square in an inky void being tossed projectiles or getting shot with lasers or acid water or what have you. You have full control over the 2D space and you duck and weave and dodge as you do in bullet hells. But the game actually takes the concept of the little dotted overworld map that some games have and gives you a simple wordless story to follow along this path, as well as a good chunk of differently packaged gameplay moments that, to me at least, adds so much supplementary entertainment to the game. These are not challenging sections, most of them you can't even fail, and if you can, there's actually a handful of checkpoints because they're not meant to be roadblocks of any kind. But they're a chance for the very talented team at Berserk to flex some of their creative ideas with the Just Shapes concept, and to add some extra personality and flair to a part of the game where it's not really necessary to take that extra step. If this was just a normal dotted line that connected the levels together, no one would have cared or thought anything of it, frankly. And it's moments like those where if you decide to give the player an extra some that they can really truly appreciate, your game really finds its way into the player's heart. If you do the little things right, it's almost impossible to not love you, especially if your core gameplay loop is holding its own, and in this case, it absolutely is. Honestly, I take back what I said at the beginning. Just Shapes and Beats is not a good title. This shit should have been called Just Shapes and Bops. You have this crazy techno soundtrack that's just bouncy as hell, and you're getting put in a spin cycle and whacked with a chainsaw, and the dude who was on the synth machine was probably having a seizure while recording this, but it was the most musically inclined loss of muscle control of all time, and then bam, next song is something you'd probably hear that lo-fi hip-hop girl listen to. It's so serene, and all of a sudden, instead of ducking and dodging these high-velocity projectiles and feeling energized, the void now feels like a damn ocean you're floating through. And you almost feel like you're part of the environment. Things aren't being hurled towards you, they're trickling down like raindrops. You're not having a giant circle ram into you, you're having rings float towards you slowly as you dance through them. And then the next song, you're in a Mission Impossible escape sequence with sirens blaring and these circles attacking you to the beat, and there's lasers and ninja stars everywhere, and this shit slaps. I have to say, my favorite types of levels were the ones that turned the intensity down. I think every level in this game is amazing, but I could not get enough of these. For a genre that's known for its aggression and its high-octane energy, which is why I enjoy it as well, even though I'm not the best at it, I was pretty surprised with how much I enjoyed it when the tension was knocked down a couple pegs and I just felt like I was experiencing the music and almost being a part of it. I still had to be engaged and not be an idiot with my movement because the level would still kill me if I wasn't, but as long as I was paying attention, I could relax and easily make it through the whole level without getting hit or even feeling the pressure of maybe getting hit. Of course, I also couldn't get enough of the other levels either, especially the bosses. These were, as you'd expect, the most intense fights out of the bunch. They had no checkpoints, although you had more health in these ones, and they hit that perfect middle ground of fairly manageable. I think I only ever reset to the beginning one time on any given boss and sometimes not at all, and still tough enough to make you feel awesome when you did dodge a whole mess of projectiles or zip perfectly through a big block of pain. I could see a hardcore bullet hell player very easily going through this whole game without getting reset once. Probably only getting hit a couple of times as well, and only with moves that don't have large tells and are more about memorization. But through the colorful look, the incredible soundtrack, the way that soundtrack is perfectly visualized by what's happening on screen, and the standout style and animation, Just Shapes and Beats becomes a lot more than what it appears to be at a first glance. This is potentially my favorite non-combative game ever, a game where you never actually fight anyone or anything, and considering its agreeable price tag, I'm pretty comfortable with saying that it's a game that I would recommend to really anyone who enjoys playing games. And honestly, even people who don't as much. It's got couch and online co-op, so if you have a friend or significant other that you want to tag along, it's not the easiest game ever, but I think they'll get the hang of it eventually. Go buy the game, everyone. Don't be an idiot like I was for 3 years. Thank you guys for watching. If you want to see more videos on new, old, and upcoming indies, there's a playlist here for that. I also do discussion videos and full analysis videos on some of my favorite games, indie or AAA. So if you dig that, subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace.